You know what happens when you work in the dark? Things get done faster. People think I'm joking, but it's true. Research shows that working in the dark can help you focus more, work faster, and even be better for your health. And with all the benefits of working in the dark, why don't we just work in the dark all the time? Here are some interesting insights from an article by UX designer Richard Banham on his experience working at Google and how he discovered the unexpected benefits of working in the dark. First, the obvious benefit is that working in a dark environment can help you focus more and work faster because you have fewer distractions. Working in a dimly lit environment can also be better for your health. For example, researchers pegged this to our ancestors, who used to live in caves or other dark places, and their bodies adapted to living in low-light conditions. This means that our eyes, ears, and other senses evolved to be more attuned to small changes in our. When you remove those distractions caused by bright lights, your other senses will be able to pick up on small changes in the room. So, even though we may not realize it, working in the dark might actually be helping us focus more. But there are also some less obvious benefits. Working in the dark makes meetings more equal. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, when you're in a well-lit room, it can be hard to look at people as faces and determine whether they're repaying attention or not. But when you turn off the overhead lights and rely on natural light or a dim lamp, it becomes harder to tell who's engaged or not. Without being able to gauge everyone's reactions, it's more likely that people will speak up and share their opinions. Banham explains that in the dark, differences in status become less apparent and hierarchy goes out the window. It's one of the reasons why he prefers to have one-on-one meetings with his manager in a cafe or other public space where the lighting is dimmer than in their office. Working in the dark also helps you build trust with others. We often think of trust as something that needs to be earned, but we also forget that it can be destroyed in an instant. One way to break someone's trust is to stare at them intensely while they're talking. But if you're in a dark room and you're struggling to see who's talking, you're less likely to do that. Instead, you're more likely to lean back and relax, which builds trust. Of course, you still shouldn't stare at people when they're talking. But working in a darker environment can help you be more mindful of how your actions affect others. But what does science say about working in the dark? A study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that people who worked in a dimly lit room were able to concentrate better than those who worked in a brightly lit room. The researchers pegged this to something called attentional blink, which is when you're less likely to notice something on the second pass. If it is similar to something you saw on the first pass, in other words, your brain is more likely to miss something if it's similar to something you just saw. The researchers had participants complete two tasks, one that required them to identify human faces and another that required them to identify human bodies. Before starting each task, the participants were shown a series of stimuli, some of which were targets and others which were The researchers found that participants were more likely to miss targets if they appeared too close to the distractors, both in terms of time and location. In other words, the more similar the target was to the distractor, the less likely participants were to notice it. The researchers then repeated the experiment with different lighting conditions. They found that participants were better able to concentrate when the lighting was dimmer. Another study published in the Journal of Environmental Psychology found that people who worked in a dark room were more likely to report positive moods and feelings of well-being. The researchers pegged this to something called the attention hypothesis of mood, which states that positive emotions are more likely to occur when you're focused on the present moment. When you're working in a dark room, you're more likely to be focused on the task at hand, rather than thinking about the past or worrying about the future. As a result, you're more likely to experience positive emotions. So it seems like working in a dark environment has a lot of benefits. So why don't we just work in the dark all the time? Well, there are some downsides. First, it can be hard to see what you're doing. This can lead to mistakes, which is why it's important to have some lights, just not too much. Second, it can be hard to collaborate. When you're working in a dark room, it can be hard to see other people's faces and body language, which makes it harder to collaborate effectively. Finally, It can be draining. When you're working in a dark room, you're more likely to feel isolated and alone. This can lead to burnout, which is why it's important to take breaks and socialize. We'll end this video with a quote from Banham's article. He writes, "What would happen if we applied the same level of care and thoughtfulness to our physical spaces as we do to our online ones? How might our interactions, behaviors, and ultimately our business outcomes change? Maybe we should all try working in the dark for a few days and see how we feel. It could be a great way to improve our focus, trust, and overall well-being." So what are your thoughts? Have you ever tried working in the dark? How do you think it went? Let me know in the comments below. I also want to thank our sponsor, Audible, for supporting this video. And now let's get into the benefits of working in the dark. I know what you're thinking. What does Audible have to do with working in the dark? Nothing really. But today I want to talk about a book I've been listening to lately called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And it got me thinking about how many misconceptions there are about introverts. Most people think that introverts are shy or socially awkward, but that's not really true. Introverts are just more comfortable with being alone than with other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that our society is built for extroverts. We live in a world that values loud, outgoing, and this can make it hard for introverts to succeed. But according to Susan Cain, author of Quiet Introverts, have a lot to offer the world. They're often deep thinkers who are able to come up with innovative ideas. The problem is that they don't always know how to share those ideas with the world. If you're an introvert, I encourage you to read Quiet. It's a great book that can help you understand yourself better and how to succeed in an extroverted world. Now back to the video. So what are the benefits of working in the dark? Well, the first benefit is that you'll be able to focus better. As we discussed earlier, working in a dimly lit room can help you focus better because you have fewer distractions. Second, you'll be able to work fast. When you're working in the dark, you're more likely to be in a state of flow, which means you're completely absorbed in what you're doing. This can help you work faster because you won't be wasting time on distractions. Finally, working in the dark can be better for your health. Some research suggests that working in a dimly lit room can help you sleep better, reduce eye strain and headaches, and even improve your mood. Of course, there are also some downsides to working in the dark. It can be hard to see what you're doing, so you might make more mistakes. It can also be hard to collaborate with others. And finally, it can be draining to work in a dark room all day. So it's important to take breaks and socialize. But overall, I think the benefits of working in a dark room outweigh the downsides. If you're able to find a way to make it work for you, it can be a great way to improve your focus, work faster, and even improve your health. Before you go, remember to subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.